Man, when you're right, you're right. And Reggies Fils-Aime just confirmed something that I've known and I've been arguing about since the launch of the Switch. I made several videos on this. Some of them you'll see up in the top right corner that have statements that the audience for Switch is older than people think, and more about the core gaming audience and bringing back some of the gaming audience that had to leave gaming due to lack of time of playing, and blah, 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 blah. Essentially, that the people who are buying Switch are the people who are game enthusiasts and people who enjoy games that either fell out of gaming because, again, lack of time or interest, or play on other platforms and see Switch as a more convenient way of playing. Plus, obviously, it helps having Breath of the Wild, Super Mario Odyssey, Splatoon 2, Doom, and other awesome games on the platform. But Reggies Fils-Aime was talking to Time.com. And there was an interview that talked about some interesting things, and there's two particular elements I want to go over. But the first one doesn't have to do with the Switch at all, but it is the point that confirms what I've been saying about Switch all along, because it's talking about the 3DS, or he's talking about the 3DS, and why it's different than Switch, and why the audience for 3DS is different. So Time Magazine says this. Let's go back to the 3DS for a minute. One of the things that differentiates the 3DS from the Switch as a handheld is that the 3DS has a giant back catalog of content. Moving forward, how do you plan to balance the 3DS versus the Switch in terms of game development? Reggies Fils-Aime says this. The Nintendo Switch, being a system that's been in the marketplace now only 7 months, certainly that's a system that our teams will continue to develop for and bring fantastic new experiences. We have to do that to keep driving that platform forward. We view the 3DS as a very important part of our lineup, but really targeted against a different consumer. That product is really focused against new consumers in the Nintendo family, such as 5, 6, 7, or 10-year-olds who want their own dedicated system, and a system on which they can play all of these great games. So it's going to have a different focus. Entry consumers and consumers looking for a little bit more value. So that's how they're differentiated. There will be new games for the 3DS line. So we're not in any way stopping our activity for that platform, but it's just focused on a different type of consumer. So there you have it. For maybe the first time in 3DS history, Nintendo is saying, hey, look, the Switch is out now, and now that the Switch is out, we're shifting our focus on 3DS. 3DS is being sold to people who are brand new to Nintendo, and they're specifically targeting children. I mean, he says it themselves. He literally says, you know, kids that are age 5, 6, 7, or 10 years old. That's the age group that 3DS is targeted towards. And if that's what differentiates the 3DS from the Switch, that means the Switch is targeted at 11, 12, 13, 14, teenagers, adults. The Switch is targeted at an older audience. That's admitting that right there that Nintendo's strategy is Switch, older core gaming audience, 3DS, young kids that are new to Nintendo. Get them in. That could also explain why, hey, the Switch has a plastic screen. It's easy to scratch. The Switch definitely feels like a premium product, not something you necessarily want children to be messing around with, while the 3DS feels more durable, and they're continuing to release new versions of it, although you can argue, like, why does it matter if there's a SNES version of the 3DS, which they're releasing now, if younger kids aren't going to even care about the SNES, but whatever. That's for Nintendo to worry about in their marketing strategy. Well, here you have Reggies Fils-Aime, president of Nintendo of America, on the board at Nintendo. Like, he's even at a higher position now. He's one of the main people on their actual board in Japan. And he is now saying that, hey, look, we're shifting it. 3DS is not about that core gaming audience anymore. So those people that love, like, the Samus Returns, those people that were on the platform for even, like, the Pokemon games and stuff, that's not the focus of the 3DS moving forward. Obviously, we know there's another Pokemon game coming. I think he's talking about, 2018 and beyond. But, yeah, so, we recently had a podcast episode saying, hey, our Pokemon Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, the swan song of the 3DS. And while maybe that's not, maybe we're preemptively killing the 3DS. I think here at Nintendo Prime, we preemptively have been talking about the death of the 3DS like all year since the launch of the Switch. And I know that upsets some people. But Nintendo's maybe not going to kill off the 3DS soon, but they are definitely shifting focus of the 3DS to a younger audience. for better or worse. So if you like Nintendo's, more mature, or not even more mature, just more hardcore or more core gaming games, you need to buy a Switch. That's basically what Reggie's message here is. If you are a teenager and above, you should own a Switch. If you're a child, you should own a 3DS. So that's a very interesting perspective. And thank you, Reggie, because this is kind of what I've been saying all along, is that Switch's audience isn't kids, and that 3DS makes more sense, or 2DS XL in this case, or 2DS makes more sense as a kid's product, because it's more durable and it's not this complicated, experience with, how many buttons are even on today's controllers? I never even think about this. You got the 4 shoulder buttons, so you got 4 buttons there. You got the 4 face buttons, that's 8 buttons. You have the plus and minus, so that's 10 buttons. The capture button and the home button, so there's 12, plus each stick clicks in, so there's 14. You could argue each direction on the D-pad could be a button. So that's 14. Now you're at 18 buttons, and then you're using two sticks. So it's pretty complex. It's not something that I expect a lot of children to pick up quickly. Now, obviously, some of you guys are going to say, hey, my child plays this really quickly, or hey, I was playing Splatoon 2 and I got my butt whooped by a 6-year-old. Hey, that's fantastic. That's going to happen. But I don't think that's the norm. There's always exceptions to the norm, and I think the norm is that most kids are playing games on tablets and phones, and more simplistic controls, because that's just what's more widely available and easily more accessible. And I think 3DS and 2DS, etc., is a more accessible program for a younger, or accessible system for a younger audience than the Switch. So here I agree with Reggie. Very, very. It's obviously I agree, because this is kind of what I've been saying the whole time, but it's interesting seeing Nintendo actually confirm it. I never actually thought Nintendo would come out and just say this, because by saying this, they're basically separating the two audiences of the platforms, and admitting they're separating the two audiences of the platforms, and targeting completely different audiences, which is a very interesting thing. Also, obviously Nintendo, even if they are killing off the 3DS, they're never going to say that. Some people have said, oh, well, Nintendo has never said they're killing. I'm like, I know. Nintendo's never said it. They don't. You don't say you're killing off your most popular product. It's not something you do publicly. It's something you do slowly over time as Switch continues to gain more and more momentum. And again, who knows? Maybe they do keep it around as that budget kids platform, as Reggie is suggesting here. And to further go along with the whole idea that Switch is being made for an older core gaming audience, Time Magazine goes on to say that there are some interesting third-party games coming out for Switch soon, like Doom, Elder Scrolls Skyrim. What is Nintendo doing to encourage developers to get AAA games to the Switch? Skyrim is a very expansive game, but it's about 6 years old now. Are you hoping to get games like this to be available for Switch when they initially launch? Again, this is something that a lot of core gamers are going to be interested in. Like, I would love to have Castle Wolfenstein 2 right now on Switch. It just released the same day as Odyssey, but we're not going to see it till next year. And Reggie says this: we absolutely are. There are things we need to do as a platform holder first. We need to make the platform vibrant, and we're doing that. The fact that the Nintendo Switch is the top-selling system when you look at March through September sales, we've created a vibrant platform that consumers want to get their hands on. The second thing we need to do is have a development environment that these developers can make content for. We're doing that, whether it's with the Unreal Engine or Unity's development platform. Then thirdly, we work hard to market this content alongside great first-party content to help consumers be aware and compelled. To create for the Nintendo Switch is different than other home consoles, so at times that creates a small gap in time. Wolfenstein 2 is going to come out on Switch, but a little bit later than on other platforms. But our goal is to shrink that gap as much as possible. So here he's saying, look, we want these games, we want them as fast as we can get them, and we're working hard to make it easier for developers to not have to space them out like they are doing Wolfenstein. So again, Nintendo focusing on bringing in those AAA third-party games, focusing on expanding their platform, focusing on an older core audience. Thank you, Nintendo, so much, because I think this has been a big key to the Switch's success. Anyways, you guys let me know what you think about these quotes down in the comments below. I am Nathaniel Rufflejans from Nintendo Prime, and if you like this video, you know what to do, and if you dislike the video, hit that dislike button. Subscribe for more content just like this, and I'll catch you in the next one.
Yes.